Hello, Mr. Darling, sir. Welcome. You have 3 minutes, and then at the end of that, members of the committee may want to ask a couple of questions for clarification. But over to you, sir.
Thank you. Chair, members of the planning committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Jing. The application seeks full planning permission for a 3-bedroom detached dwelling which will be occupied by the applicants. Further surprisingly, having offered this implementing 6 reasons to review them. The site is considered to be previously developed land due to the fact that it's more garden land outside the built-up area boundary as established by case law. Furthermore, the application site also benefited from a building that was recent demolition due to safety concerns and asbestos. Therefore, this is not a greenfield site. It is also established in case law that the term isolated means far away from other places, buildings, or people, remote. The infill opportunity within an existing village, and therefore the policy TCV 26 is not the correct policy to determine this application. We accept the fact that the site lies within the A&B, the Heritage Coast, and the Unclothed Coast. However, only major developments carry a presumption against approval in the A&B. The site occupies the farthest extremity of the Heritage Coast and Undeveloped Coast designations, remote from the coast by 2.5 kilometres. Clearly, the erection of a single dwelling in this location on previously developed land cannot be considered to conflict with these policies, the aims of which is to preserve the character of the area. In fact, the application is supported by a comprehensive landscape master plan that was initially well received by the landscape officer, and their positive comments initially are recorded online. This, of course, was before their response was amended at the very end of the process. This landscape master plan clearly leads to a significant improvement in landscape visual terms and should be applauded. The National Planning Policy Framework is clear in that planning matters of a non-strategic nature are best dealt with at the local level through neighbourhood plans. It is clear that limited infilling in appropriate locations, previously developed land, and between existing residential developments should not be dealt with as a strategic matter or policy. Accordingly, the provisions for such limited development are best dealt with through the neighbourhood plan.
30 seconds.
Neighbourhood plan's first stated objective acknowledges that infilling will occur. There is no impact on any of the viewpoints identified in the neighbourhood plan, and importantly, the parish council are in support of this application and find that it complies with the relevant policies of their plan. To refuse this application would undoubtedly be harmful to the confidence in the neighbourhood planning process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions to Mr. Darling?
Thank you.
Councillor Foss.
The previous speaker that was read out by our officer that you have no access, or your clients have no access through that gateway. You know how the barn that was there previously with access, was it through that gateway or was it directly off the road?
So the applicants do have that access, and should have rights to that access. I apologise, we couldn't hear what was going on in the other room, so I missed the majority of the previous speaker, but they do have the ability to access that site through the existing gateway.
Right. The second question, Chairman, might be maybe for the officers. Some of that land is agricultural land. I think I've heard that. Was your application made to change the whole of that area into residential use?
There was, this plan here was the application 2001, which was a change of use of the site of agricultural land, residential garden, but the area outlined in red there.
So there has been an application that's done, is it?
Yes, yeah, that was 2001.
Right, okay.
Right, Councillor Hodgson.
Right. One of the things that we've been looking at in the report suggest that there are sustainability merits for the bill here. Obviously, Southampton Council will be interested in that, the two-state climate emergency and the biodiversity emergency. I just wonder, you know, is there something we're missing here that maybe you'd like to just maybe, I may ask and
Yeah.
finish, kind of give us a sense of what we looking at.
Yes. So thanks for the opportunity to go back on Shirley's point. We would like to be associated in the route, which is on the plans and in the statement. And we would also look to use air source heat pumps. We are happy to explore other opportunities to be even more sustainable than that for a single dwelling. But fortunately, we might give the opportunity to do so during application.
Awesome. Any more questions? No? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, if we approve this, could we condition?
Of course we can.
Yeah.
Of course we can. There'll be, if the committee is minded to approve it, there'll be loads of this.
Yeah.
Councillor Kent.
I'm a bit concerned about access now. I didn't realise.
The access is not a planning consideration in the sense that the ownership of it or the right to use the access is a civil matter between people who think that they've got access and the people who don't think they've got access.
Right, so that's going to be a
Well, indeed, but
an issue, but nothing we.
not a planning consideration, no.
Okay. And those, sorry, just one other thing,
Yeah.
if I may. All those trees that in that photograph that you showed just now.
That's a proposed plan.
No, the one, the original photograph that showed
Yeah.
where the farm was.
This one,
Yeah, so.
Yes, I don't know what this is, dated September 2011.
Oh, okay, so you quite some time ago. And that farm's still in existence there.
Yeah, I think you just see the corner of it in that photo.
Okay.
Right. Let's have the parish council. Mr. Young, you going to read that again? Excellent.
From Councillor Nick.
Yeah, councillor.
As a prerequisite to the parish council supporting this development, it had to be classified as infill. The council concluded it was because 1, it occupies a space between pre-existing dwellings. 2, it is single 2-storey dwelling that matches other dwellings along this section of the road. 3, it replaces a building that occupied the site until recently, though it has a larger footprint. A photograph of the original building was shown to attendees at the site meeting on the 4th of October. The parish council also concluded that the proposed development complied with the neighbourhood plan in respect of specific requirements of its policies on environmental and coastal management. I'd like to highlight a couple of matters that were discussed. 1, the proposed development is at the inland margin of the area defined as undeveloped heritage coast, replaced an existing building and has dwellings either side. As such, it was agreed that the proposed development will not have any material impact on this area. 2, the view through the proposed entrance gate is important as it lies on a well-trodden walk through the village. Though not expressly identified in the neighbourhood plan, it is vital that this viewpoint is retained. Council noted that the applicants altered their original planning application to remove a garage that would have interfered with this view. Council also noted that the proposed development was replacing an existing building and the view would therefore be the same as before. Finally, the parish council concluded that the proposed development complied with neighbourhood housing and other policies for the following reasons. 1, according to the submitted plans and design statement, the proposed development will be of a similar scale, height, materials and layout as adjacent built properties. 2, due to the location on the inside of the bend in the road, it will have limited visibility for passers-by. 3, one of the neighbours involving screens the proposed development from both nearby listed buildings, the church and Manor Cottage. The proposed development is not visible from the conservation areas except possibly in winter from part of Shoot Lane. The proposed development is not visible from the viewpoints identified in the neighbourhood plan. In summary, the parish council resolved to support the application as the proposed development complies with the vision and policies of our neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Right, that's the Parish Council. We'll now move to ward members. Councillor Long, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I think.
Or you go, Councillor. Just so you didn't feel like you were under pressure that you always had to go first, Councillor Pearce. But if you're happy to, that's fine by me.
Well, I don't know whether I'm happy to or not, but I will. Okay, so members of the committee, I see the nub of the question here as to whether this is really infill, as it's right on the edge of the built-up area, the already fairly dispersed settlement. I think you've got first the settlement of South Norton is when on the site inspection, so that was useful for you. And if it is infill, whether it's policy compliant to infill on a plot which is largely in the undeveloped coast. The refusal reasons given by the officers note that the application does not comply with 2 of the strategic policies in the JLP. Now, this is important because the strategic policies stand whatever. The neighbourhood plan can alter and refine the development policies, but not the strategic policies. So that's another consideration you've got to make when you determine this application. Presumption against development in the undeveloped coast. Now, it's unfortunate that this is right on the edge. Remains undeveloped coast, whether it's on the edge of it or down on the coastline. So please bear that in mind when you take a decision. There is, therefore, a clear conflict here between the JLP policies and the parish's view of their neighbourhood plan policies. In the end, it will be a matter of balance for you, but it's worth noting that South Hams has an exceptionally high number of small sites coming forward, and this can possibly distort our delivery figures, particularly in light of the housing emergency we declared and the affordable housing figures that we are developing. Now, I've got some figures here to give you. I won't bombard you with them, but for instance, last year during the pandemic, so that's 19 to 20, we developed 106 dwellings on large sites and 104 dwellings on small sites. Now, given if you take delivery on large sites of affordable housing to be 30%, you can immediately see that reduces the delivery of affordable housing because we can't ask for it on small sites to only 15% overall because those numbers were roughly equal. This year, last year really, but the figures for this year are for 2021, and I've just got these from the policy planners. And on the larger sites, we've delivered a net figure of 414 houses, and on small sites, 125 dwellings. But overall, only 77 affordable dwellings were delivered within the South Hams. Now, again, you can see that because the number of small sites was roughly, well, over a quarter of those delivered on large sites, we're again diluting the number of affordable houses delivered. And not only that, but also the contributions towards infrastructure, school places, and all the rest of it that are being delivered in the district. Now, whilst this isn't directly a reason for not allowing this particular development, and you've got to make up your own minds on this, all I'm saying to you is that every time we deliver a small site, we are not getting those contributions, and in particular, we're not getting the affordable housing. And it's therefore the view of the policy planners, and we were reminded of this at the last local plan policy board joint board meeting, that if small sites are not compliant then with policy, and particularly with the strategic policies, then they should not get planning permission because all the time we are tending to distort our delivery figures by allowing them. So just bear that in mind. This is one that's very much in the plan and balance, but I hope that maybe I've given you some slightly different points of view on which to make your minds up on this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Any questions, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, Leader, if you say small site, is that a small site, not an individual site? Because an individual site and a small site seem to be two separate things.
Well, a small site, on the whole, is one that is less than 10 dwellings. That's considered to be a small site, but there aren't a lot of those. There are some sites that have got 2 or 3, up to 5 dwellings on them, and the reason normally for only 5 dwellings is because under 5 housing, do you? And if it's anywhere else, under 10 houses, you don't have to deliver any affordable housing. So that's why developers go for those numbers. But particularly in the South, a lot of single dwellings coming forward, either infill or whatever reason, and a lot of them are barn conversions as well. Now, obviously, on all those, we don't get any contributions, and in particular, we don't get any affordable housing. And given the desperate position we're in the South Hams, that is perhaps something that you need to start taking into consideration when you look at these individual dwellings. If they're policy compliant, that's fine. But if there is any doubt over policy, and I would say there is a doubt here because of the undeveloped coast, where housing should not be allowed, it can be delivered elsewhere, and plainly a house can be delivered elsewhere, then that's something you need to weigh up in the planning balance.
Councillor Rowe.
Could I ask, please, Councillor? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may not be the right question for you, but you will probably know the answer. Has South Milton recently done a housing needs survey?
Not that I'm aware of, but I think they did do one when they were doing their neighbourhood plan. But they started their neighbourhood plan a long time ago, and they were really unfortunate with the examiner they had, who for various reasons held them up for ages and ages and ages. And so eventually their plan was made, I think, just after the joint method plan was adopted. But I'm going to Phil's not hearing it, so you can tell me that. But I think I'm right in saying that. But 5th of May 2020. Yes, yes. Okay, so even if they did do a housing needs survey, I would suggest that it would be out of date now because it would be more than 5 years ago.
Just can I add another?
Yes, of course,
question? Because I feel when we visited the site, there was an ideal site for community land trust work for people. There must be people in the parish who are needed affordable inverted commas or self-build housing, and I felt it would be an ideal site for that, not for just 1, 4, 3, 4 bedroom property.
Yeah, but the neighbourhood plan has actually allocated a site which you didn't see. You actually went past it as you left the village to go to Hope Cove, but you probably didn't realise where it was as you went past it. But they have allocated a site which I forget how many dwellings it will hold. But the idea is that it should eventually be developed there, and there will be affordable housing on that site.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? I'll just make a point. I'm not going to argue it here with Councillor Pearce, but obviously we've chosen to put in 5 and 10 houses that we don't have to put affordable. We don't have to have that in our joint local plan.
No, I think that's not your policy.
No, there was a court that went to the High Court with one, and the reason why it was allowed is because at the High Court, the judge specifically says it's voluntary. Because if you remember, when the ministerial statement came out, it was challenged by two councillors who won their challenge, saying that they couldn't do that. That was not allowed. They were acting ultra vires. It went to appeal, and at appeal, the government made the case that they weren't saying this was the law and this is how it stood. It was saying that this was a direction or whatever.
Guidance.
A guidance. So we have chosen to take that on board. I don't think we should, and it's another thing that maybe when we come to our joint local plan, we can look at review. So that all single properties will indeed not be able to say, well, we're less than 5, therefore we don't have to afford it. But we have the joint local plan as it is. Councillor Pearce is quite correct. There is no need for the applicant to provide any affordable with this. But anyway, we won't have that argument now. Another time, another place. Right, members, Councillor Long.
This is supported by South Milton Parish Council. They have indicated that their neighbourhood plan would support it. I think members who were there have seen that it is a site which the South Milton village is sort of strung out along the road with elements. It's not a cohesive central sort of area. So this is, and that is why they see it as an infill plot in the village. I think it's pertinent that it is on the edge, right on the edge of the undeveloped coast. What is interesting is that I understand that as the agent has said, that they would be putting in, it is a low maintenance building, heat source pumps, solar panels, so it would meet DEV 32. So I think this is a point. I know there is what I would call a partial conflict with the policy, because part of the site area is in the undeveloped coast. But I think what we're looking at here, we need to consider that villages like this do need infill. And I understand from the site meeting that the applicants have indicated agreement to a Section 106 principal residency, which obviously would secure the property for sustainable future in the village. You know, it's part of sustainability of the village to keep housing there. And I think this does address the housing mix imbalance. And I was interested by the officer saying that 3 bedrooms are undersupplied in the village, but they should not be detached. We're either looking for 3 bed or we're not looking for 3 bed, you know, whether they're detached or semi-detached. And I think it is a balance, but I think this type of development is important for villages. So it's interesting, and I'd like to hear more of what other members of the committee have to say before I give my view.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Right, members, over to you. You're on the site visit. Thank you for those who came on the site visit. Any who would like to start? And Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I think this committee is really good. Have the advantage of being able to have disinterested observers into places which we don't otherwise know very well. And for me, as a disinterested observer, it seems to me that there's a syndrome which just carries my view. I would like to disagree with the argument being put forward by Councillor Pearce, in that what we had was an argument based upon statistics, how council whether it's a proportion of affordable houses or not. It is a shame that there is an element contributing to affordable houses here, but I wouldn't stop a house being built just because it might alter the way our statistics appear to point. Well, for the first reason, really, I'm minded to approve this.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't spend a lot of time repeating what Councillor Abbott just said, but just to say that I do agree with his view on the site visit was very, very appealing. In terms of the impact on visual amenity on the site, I think putting a new property in actually will perhaps reduce some of the impact of that very large building that's in the adjacent site, which isn't necessarily what one would expect to find in traditional old thatch house villages. So I mean, in terms of the local vernacular, it's quite mixed as far as I can see. So I think the parish council supports it and the neighbourhood plan supports it. I would actually move approval. I realise it's against the officers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Foss?
Yeah, Chairman, I've got more comment than anything else. Much has been made of the fact that just inside the heritage coast and all these designations, and it angers me sometimes. You can't see the coast or anywhere near the coast from this particular site. And it's the same with the AONB as well. It's been drawn on an arbitrary line. There's bits that should be in the AONB, bits that shouldn't be in the AONB, if you like. And it's the same with this coast. This site, I'm the same as the two previous questions. agree that it is infill for that particular village. But as yet, I'm not making my point because we've got other things to consider, but I want to hear other comments before we actually make one.
Members, anyone else? Councillor Long.
The built form of the house, you know, is very close, and I think it's marginal. I haven't measured it up as to whether a corner of the patio is within the undeveloped coast. There are properties nearby in the undeveloped coast that have had side rear extensions, increasing the built form in the undeveloped coast, not far along the road from this. The opening to the view to the undeveloped coast remains, although looking at what the landscape officer has said is almost indicating that, you know, in his second report, in his first one, he was very glowing about everything that was being done there, about the replanting, the Devon banks going in rather than having post and rail fencing in there. So he saw it as improvement. One of the questions has got to be, can there be no change of the view? Because in that area, there are going to be trees growing, and it is going to change. But the actual openness of the village at that point, with the property beside and that gate opening, you will still have that, you know, glance through to the undeveloped coast, the landscape beyond. But the view down to it, there will be no impact, as has been indicated, if that property were developed from the conservation area, from the listed buildings, or from the very distant views from one of the footpaths on the Ridgeway, which is one of the only elements where you can view it. It is an infill plot in the village. It's not on the edge of the settlement. As I've said, this is a village which is strung out along the many roads. There are some clumps of development nearby along Shoot Lane, back by the church. It is not a centralised village. So therefore, what we're looking at is a sustainable an evolution of the village as it has done before. And I'd say that small villages like this do need small developments like this. Yes, it's unfortunate that we don't, as a council, receive any affordable housing out of this, but I understand the applicants, as I mentioned, have indicated they would agree to a Section 106 principal residency on it, which would secure that property going forward. And I would say addresses Dev 8 in that the housing mix imbalance is addressed in the fact that, it will never become a second home. It remains a principal residence, which that village needs. It does supply a 3-bed house, which the planning officer confirmed were undersupplied in the village. So it does meet that policy. And I would say that we also have the ability to condition it, and there's been an indication that we have the opportunity, or the applicants are actually looking to meet Dev 32 by having PVs, air heat source pumps. It's a new build, so the quality and the standard would be higher and meet all the sort of current and coming forward building regulations. And I think this is a site which can deliver a quality home that fits in with the vernacular of the village. And this, I believe, Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting this because it is infill. The parish council supports it, and they are very, very protective of their village, and they worked hard on their neighbourhood plan. And I believe that for it not to be approved, because it is on the absolute edge of the undeveloped coast, brings into question the actual value of the undeveloped coast, which I do believe in, because in a lot of the areas it really does support it. But when it's coming up to a village edge, or as it does there, very strangely comes right into the village, it has to be questioned. Otherwise, we will not have villages evolving and continuing to survive. So, Mr. Chairman, I support this application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kemp. Okay, well, while you're thinking, I've got a proposal for approval, which is proposed. That's seconded by Councillor Abbott. So I've got a proposal for approval. So that's been proposed and seconded. I'm going to have reasons why you're going against the officer recommendations for refusal. And also we will need conditions. I'm not proposing that we go through all the conditions before we vote here and now, but I think some of them, I mean, it's very nice of the applicants to volunteer. They're not volunteering, they will be signing a 106 for a primary residency if they get it. They will be signing a 106 that complies with DEB 32. Those aren't optional. Those are absolutely part of our joint local plan. So if members are minded to approve, bear in mind that those will be part. It won't get through. Ms. Houselander.
To remind before you go to that do have a joint local plan, and the reasons do mention quite a number of policies in the joint local plan, which is something that's against. So it would be really important that you have up some other reasons and policies that justify your decision.
Sure, I get that. I mean, just listening to the debate, Ms. Houselander, I think the members that proposed and seconded it, and Councillor Long, who said he's going to support the approval, feel that actually this is an infill site, and that's the difference of opinion between officers and members who will support it. And to me, that is I don't feel nervous that we're breaking some great strategic. In truth, most of this village is going to be has the extreme, designations as far as landscape is concerned. So the inspector allowed the neighbourhood plan to have infill sites with regard to the fact that there would be, AONB, heritage coast, undeveloped coast, but still allowed the infill site. So I think that there is wriggle room there.
Chair, before you go to vote, just that comment regarding the section
Okay.
2, but also the other one, the primary residence. See, I'm not aware that there's a policy within the local plan that could require it. So while they could volunteer it, if there was then any decision, any decision wish to move away from that, we've got no policy requirement to insist on that on the principal residency.
But it's in the neighbourhood plan.
No, I'm not aware that it. I've got the neighbourhood plan out.
5 more dwellings. But if the applicant is willing to enter a section,
Well, absolutely. I was unaware. I mean, I have to say, I can't believe that that's, but there we are.